Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Odessa, the Dark Crusade. Our scene will be starting with Memnon, thrice forsaken of Clan Lasombra. He is venturing out this evening, making his way into Riverside to visit his mentor of sorts at the Blooming Rose. His mentor, Zoya, in the darker arts and secretive ways that the Lasombra uh, keep as an extension of their control over the darkness. When he makes his way there, he is suited in some more finer garbs, not quite his work attire, and he comes with a sizable small chest of well, we'll leave that as a surprise for when he does arrive. Um, and when he makes his way there, if there's no obstacle preventing him from arriving in a timely fashion, he will present himself at the steps of the Blooming Rose. I assume he'll have to announce himself to any security there.
Um, yeah, guards know you well at this point though, so they let you straight on in. They recognize you by um, just by your looks. So they don't really pay you any heed. Um, uh, they just kind of give you a head gesture and just tell you the lady's waiting inside. Um, yeah, it's really just as simple as that. You can just walk on in. No real checks need to be made.
Okay. Then, yeah, he'll make his way to her private chamber. He'll knock on her door if it's closed.
Um, door is closed. Yeah. You just hear a voice from inside saying, "Come on in."
He'll enter and close the door behind him, and he won't say anything to her until he's within arm's reach. He'll just say, "Good evening, Lady Zoya. It's been quite some time."
It has. What have you been doing all this time? I haven't seen you in months.
Business, much business, and at that he'll take the chest from under his arm and he'll just raise it up to kind of exaggerate his point. But he'll actually set it down on any surface nearest her. I imagine she was sitting down.
Yeah. Yeah. She's sitting. She actually wasn't facing you when she was talking to you. She was writing something. You can actually see the fragment of abyssal material just on the desk next to her. She's just taking an inked quill to some parchment, which she has a fair stack of. Um, but upon hearing a fairly heavy clunk of wood and metal hitting the floor, she will turn from her chair just to see what the commotion is.
Um,
She just looks down and says, "I see you clean up well."
he winces a smile. "Hmm. I can't always be covered in the soot and grime of my craftsmanship."
No, but you definitely take the shine with you.
So, yes, Memnon. I guess he'll just leave the chest there. He won't draw any attention to it. Um, he'll say, "So, how has the research gone on what I brought back?"
Mm. Um, It's been a long and fascinating few months. I'll spare you the rather grim details and a certain week-long departure. But what I have discovered is that this material is, on the surface, not too dissimilar from one of our arms of Ahriman. Effectively, a solidified form of the Abyss's essence. Where it differs is from where it is pulled from within the Abyss itself. What we know as arms of Ahriman, shadow tendrils, swords of darkness, whatever those among our kind call them, is that they're only drawn, or almost always drawn, from the surface of the Abyss itself. It is, while an advanced application of drawing from the shadow, it ultimately does not touch upon the core of the plane itself. There is generally good reason for this. Doing so is extremely dangerous and generally attracts attention. It can be quite hard to pull on the shadow from deep within the Abyss without dragging something else along with it. It requires of it a certain degree of refinement.
Is this the part of the Abyss where the intelligence lies? Its sentience?
To an extent, I've tapped into a certain level of intent, for lack of a better term, from this shard. It carries with it many of the same weaknesses of the arms: vulnerability to fire, fragility to sunlight. But I have managed to discern it is only certain kinds of flame.
Certain kinds of flame. That's intriguing.
Most forms of fire dim and die in its presence. You might have noticed the only torches alight in this room are the ones, well, by the entrance. It is not too dissimilar from the condition that my sire suffered from. I'm not sure if you are aware of some of the various ailments that can afflict Clan La Sombra, or all Cainites for that matter. Some Cainites from within this city have suffered from animate shadows, manifestations from their inner darkness that have been left uncontrolled. This is surprisingly cosmopolitan among the children of Cain. One might consider that it occurs more often within Clan La Sombra due to our propensity towards the darkness, but it occurs within many other clans of relatively the same amount of frequency, perhaps in due part because while we might have a certain proximity to shadow, we also possess a certain control over it, whereas the other clans, while they are more distant, possess virtually no control whatsoever. So a few times it does occur to them, they have no ability to stop it, whereas other clans, well, our clan, I should more accurately say, um, can at least make the attempt.
Mm.
My sire suffered from a very severe form of this animate shadow, in that it was not just a mundane shadow acting out the sort of intent you see in this mirror shard. The shadows themselves were much closer to an extension of the abyss itself. It did not only lash out at any bystander, but it caused the flames to wither and die in its presence. The shadows stretched out over entire, well, I exaggerate in saying stretching out over entire neighborhoods, but it should give you some perspective as to the severity of my sire's problem. He usually had to travel concealed from mortals and found it difficult to approach them, as his shadows would go out of their way not only to harass them, but to try and find ways to grant them harm. The shadows themselves would manifest elements of the abyss in a very shallow sense. Cold breezes, a strange, unnerving presence that even mortals can detect and define. No doubt of the hunter crisis that this city suffered from for some time, well, my sire would have most certainly been a victim.
I see.
This material contains. Oh, sorry.
No. It's okay. Please continue.
I was just going to say this shard possesses the same degree of intelligence, but less of the overt effects. It appears to be contained to the mirror. The dimming effect it has on flame is less severe than my sire's element. It is more controlled. I've been trying to find ways to manipulate this effect. I've, insofar, have had mixed success. I've been able to replicate my sire's element within the mirror, but I've not been able to control it as to exude the positive effects of killing fire over such a large proximity without luring out the more overt, potentially silence-breaching effects that he also possessed. The shard also possesses, well, if you run your finger along its edges, you'll quickly discover how dangerous it can be.
I'll take your word for it for now. If your studies with it are, I would like to take possession of it and my own study with it.
If you can figure out something I've missed, I'd be more than happy for you to look over it. Just don't throw it in a forge, it will melt. As from what I've discovered from its structure, it is very much like glass. In fact, it appears, while it is very much like an arm, it is a solidified form of the abyss. This one has manifested in the form of glass. So you might be able to treat it like that in some way. Might make it difficult to forge into anything useful. But maybe you can find a way to apply heat to it, or find a way to hand forge it without causing it to destroy itself. After all, heat is not the same as fire. I've discovered very much the hard way, which was. I'll let that be that. But yes. The shard could be quite dangerous if molded into some sort of lethal tool. It seems to have. Oops, sorry.
Oh, Memnon just said, "I have no doubt."
Oh yes. While I say its structure is very much like glass, it very much has the strength of steel, as it were. It doesn't shatter easily. I tried. I've applied varying degrees of potence to it, slowly, gradually, to see if it would rupture or crack in any way, and see what its breaking point was, but I was not able to find it. It actually reminds me of one of the works of a very certain prestigious bourgeois I've heard of in passing, who've been able to apply their potence in magnificent ways to create extremely destructive weapons.
Hmm. Have you tried blood? Does it respond to the vitae?
It responds to an open wound. It drains life from its victims. Uh, Similar to a nocturne,
Ah, interesting.
but instead of suffocating them, it seems to just leech vitality. Um, not not in the form of blood. The shard will not absorb blood materially. Rather, it will tire its foe. It could likely kill a mortal just by being within skin contact of them for, let's say, 5 minutes.
So it robs them of their vitality.
Yes, it will tire them out, render them breathless, slow their heartbeat, slow their breathing rate, weaken the muscles, numb them until the victim simply, seemingly, dies of exhaustion.
That has a lot of potential useful applications, but
Yes, it has a similar effect on us, but of course, we are undead. We are unchanging. It cannot leech us of all our vitality. I, I can imagine it could render us into a torpid or vegetative state, potentially, if you are particularly physically weak. But for individuals such as us, those of apt mind and body, I doubt it could do as such. Those are the effects that I've been able to discern from it, and it appears to originate from the partial sapience within the mirror. The power and the sapience are inextricably tied.
there was a request I was going to make of you at a later time that perhaps if you would fill it, I could hopefully find more of these shards. In everything that you have spoken of, yes, this city seems to be plagued with shadows. Have you heard anything about fire cults here in Riverside?
Ah, yes, the Zoroastrians. I've had dealings with them in the past, although not in several years.
Uh, for your sake, Chris, Memnon's going to give her the basic rundown of what happened that night. Um, I don't want to drag you out too long, but Memnon will say, so yes, this shadow creature that had we assume appeared after Brazier and the fire. I was hoping perhaps if you would allow me to have access in your dungeon to venture into the abyss and see if there are answers I can find to the nature of this creature. I do suspect that it might be some extension of the abyss.
That is a very dangerous request to make, not for myself, but for you. Didn't the last, when you initially found these shards, it was from a creature that attempted to convert you, yes?
Yes, that it was.
Then you'll at very least need some degree of mental protection. Which is, I'll see what I can do on that front, although I may struggle to provide it. Now, defenses against the abyssal creature, the denizens of the abyss, in a more physical sense, I can grant you some assistance with, and to the natural conditions of the abyss. Obviously, you have some bare minimum training in arts of both mysticism and of tenebration, but only advanced applications will actually be able to grant you any degree of protection. Other such mystical rituals may assist you, but I am no expert in them. I have heard of usurper banning rituals that may be able to aid you, but whether they actually possess them or not is anyone's guess. They certainly they certainly keep their cards close to their chest, and I can't exactly blame them.
They do. Fortunate, I happen to be a colleague beneath the sheriff with one such usurper. In this being a venture for the greater good, and of course, keeping things, well, in necessary secrecies, I think perhaps they may lend me some aid with no questions asked.
Perhaps you could find a material that is less glass-like and perhaps something more malleable, something you could actually forge a weapon with. That may be more practical in your efforts, although frankly I have little idea of where to find them other than very deep within the abyss, but I have no geographical location for you, nor any particular method to reach these items, I'm afraid. This is the first instance of physical abyssal substance I've seen outside of sapient creatures or various applications of tenebration. I've always understood it to be something that was manufactured, never something that naturally occurred within the abyss itself. This is something of a revelation, to be honest, a new discovery.
Would you like me to put in writing my accountings of what happened? Perhaps that may give you a new revelation or insight into how this shard manifested itself.
It would be helpful, yes. I do grow concerned, however. It is a mirror shard. It is possible. It is possible of any item, I suppose, particularly those you obtain from supernatural planes, that they possess sympathetic links. Particularly, a mirror shard is symbolic of a scrying tool.
That is to say that the abyss is watching as much as we.
Possibly, particularly since there is a degree of sapience. It is possible that there is a degree of bilocation to the entity that inhabits this item. That it is existing within two places at once, either having split part of itself off, or simply has the capacity to manifest in multiple places. But this is largely just speculation. Truth be told, research and actual provable, demonstrable evidence of what various denizens of the abyss are capable of is scarce at best, non-existent at worst. Frankly, we are probably one of the more informed pairs, particularly within the area.
A question, Lady Zoya. At what point do you think we should, if at all, consult the Seneschal about this?
That is an interesting question. I suppose we will see what he is willing to give to obtain the information.
That is a very astute observation. And you can see, she could see Memnon smiling if she's looking.
Somewhat politically inconvenient, given how the few outside of the clan that do know of activities tend to view it.
Which makes it much more valuable information, since only so few have access to the market.
Oh yes, we certainly have a niche we can fill, which is why we still exist. It is why the usurpers still exist. They partake in the same stratagem. Yes. You hold on to this, see what you can discover from it. You're a far more apt craftsman than me, so perhaps you could discover something regarding its structure. Obviously, we know it's physically tough, but how it can be changed into something else, maybe. Let's see if it is malleable, whether it is truly unchanging. The abyss is a mixture of immovable status and constantly changing fluidity. I would say its mood depends on the time of day, but that would be a rather inapt statement to make.
That is actually interesting. I would be careful with my ghouls, instruct them dealing with it, but I wonder if during the day the structure may be somewhat more malleable. It's just a hypothesis.
Yes, I would be careful around it in sunlight. It will most likely evaporate instantly, as does anything the abyss touch, as does anything that sunlight touches in regards to the abyss. But and well, any fire you can keep lit around it. Um, Enjoy yourself. And keep me informed. You may be able to compare notes. I'm still trying to discover the connection between the sapience and the power it emits and see if there's a way to manipulate it. If we can reliably not only find a way to transmute it, but also control its mystical effects, we may have a very, very powerful tool for the clan if we can acquire more.
Of
A lot of
course.
what ifs, but we have made the first initial steps, and the discovery itself is significant.
It is a start. And that's where all great journeys begin.
Yes. I may at some point attempt to contact Sicily. They may wish to know about this new discovery. It would be something of a boon towards our station. But I'd not wish to inform them without having some more practical results first.
Understandable. We don't want to just throw theories at them. We want to give them, well, working mechanism.
They have a significant library on the nature of the abyss, and they are still dealing in many theories. I think the last thing they want or need is more.
Very well. Oh, and before I do depart, Lady Zoya, and this is where Memnon will draw her to the chest. Here is a token of my appreciation. I know that it has been some time, And even though now the curfew has been lifted, I thought still perhaps to help you get back on your footing with the loss of business you had to suffer.
You have my thanks for your generosity, Menmon.
Well, anything to support the clan.
Very much approving of this notion. And good luck in your studies, although, if I may suggest, you do wish to venture into the abyss. Do not neglect the mysticism I have taught you. You will need it.
Oh, no, of course not. I have extended my standing, and manipulation is such a coarse word in this form. But I have learned a little bit more through the abyss. I am capable of summoning portions of it that can be like my eyes at night in faraway places.
I guess it is the first ritual most neophytes learn. I don't suppose you you mucked it up, did you?
Not yet.
Well, that is good. It's quite obvious when beginners do.
Mistakes are always matters of eventuality. It is a pragmatic approach, I think.
That is good. That is the attitude you'll need to have as you venture further into mysticism. The rules are not so clearly defined as in the mundane world. It is perhaps why it is so uncomfortable for those outside the circle to confront. They have nothing to hold on to. But I understand. But I believe you will do well. But if that is all, I will hand you the shard. Ghouls are more resistant to its vitality sapping qualities, but I still would not leave it in skin contact with them for more than maybe an hour.
Thank you. I'll take that under advisement. I'm hoping that just in the daylight hours, perhaps inside a secluded forge, my ghoul can describe to me if it's a little bit more malleable, its texture.
Maybe. I shall leave this to your expertise.
Very well. I will bid you farewell, Lady Zoya, and with my new discoveries, you will be the first to know.
You have my thanks. Have a pleasant evening.
Memnon will just make a slight bow. He'll take the shard, and he'll put it somewhere in something safe if he has something with him. And yeah, he'll make his exit.
And then we can end this scene. Thank you, Player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you all next time.